Well, you may remember me from last time. I'm Dr. Philip Phillips. I'm Associate Dean of the University Honors College, Professor of English, and very pleased to have all of you in this class. Glad that we have with us Dean John Weil today. And we have one of our other speakers in the series, one of our resident honors faculty members, Dr. Rebecca King. We'll bring her back later this semester. So welcome back to our lecture series on spaces and places. As you know from what we just did, we will open the floor periodically for announcements like the one that we had today, things that are important to us as an honors college, opportunities that we think are important for you to know about. We'll try to bring those here to the lecture series because this is the largest honors class that we have. We've got 45 of you, plus any visitors who come to the class. So this will be a fairly regular feature of the course. Now, you've looked at your syllabus. You've also looked at the poster for the class. And I want to remind everybody that next week we are going to be participating in the reading of the U.S. Constitution. This is a tradition that we have at MTSU in which we read through the entire U.S. Constitution. We take turns. We'll line up and each person will read a part until we read the whole Constitution. And this is done at different stations on the campus. The Honors College always sponsors a reading of the U.S. Constitution. We also house the American Democracy Project here in the college. So that sort of falls under the auspices of honors. So instead of coming to class next week, just come to the courtyard and we'll start the reading. The other thing to note on the syllabus is that we have a distinguished speaker who's coming as part of our U.S. Constitution Week, David Brooks, who is a writer for the New York Times. His talk is We the People, the Place of the U.S. Constitution in Students' Everyday Spaces. This is officially part of our lecture series, and so we're very excited about this, but please note the date and time. It's on your syllabus and it's on the poster, so I want everybody to be aware of that, and then we'll be back in this classroom on the 22nd. Okay, very good. So today, I am very pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Bill Engel. Dr. Engel is the Nick B. Williams Professor of Literature at Sewanee, the University of the South, where he teaches all manner of literary works in the English department and the humanities program. He is also Sewanee's fencing master. He received his PhD from the University of California at Berkeley and has been a research fellow at the Warburg and the Courtauld Institutes in London, as well as closer to home at the Huntington, the Folger, and the Newberry Libraries. His publications range from Chaucer's Debt to Boethius, Shakespeare's historical context, John Milton's use of Anglo-Saxon, and Karl Marx's references to classical and Renaissance literature. He is a true Renaissance man. He's the editor or author of 11 books, including most recently the printer as author in early modern English book history. Currently in production with Cambridge University Press, where he has published 3 volumes already, is a volume entitled Learning to Love in Renaissance England. And this fall, Dr. Engel is completing his chapter for the Routledge Companion to Edgar Allan Poe on Poe's poetry, poetics, and critical reception. So speaking of receptions, let's warmly receive Dr. Engel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And please pick up a handout if you did not get one. I think this gentleman here with the blue watch did not get one, so let's send that back. Anyone else need a handout? Yeah, that'll help you a little bit, just to follow along. And if I become tedious, you could doodle on it. But I think we made enough. I think it's great to see this many people committed. Oh, we need one over here, Professor Phillips. Committed to an honors college, the honors program, and all that that entails. I think this gentle person down here needed one. Oh, good. Let me find my clicker.
Anybody else?
Great. So, thank you so much, Dean Phillips, for your generous introduction, and I am truly delighted to be included in MTSU's Fall 2025 Honor Lecture Series on Spaces and Places. My goal as your keynote speaker is to give you a few things to think about that can help you hold in your mind and then think through in a critically self-reflective way what literature has to teach us about what might be meant by spaces and places. As we move forward, and as Dean Phillips just told you, I'm a literature professor, so I believe that literary works can offer us a range of opportunities, if recognized as such, to imagine ourselves differently through the lens of the characters and places we encounter in what we read. So I want to begin with Adrienne Rich and her poem, Double Monologue. She shares the following. This is on your handout as well. It will bear up further reading. And this is part of a longer poem in which there are two speakers, but they're not really talking to each other. They each have a monologue. One's a male and one's a female. It's worth your time. It's in her collected works. She says, "Since I was more than a child, trying on 1,000 faces, I have wanted one thing, to know simply as I know my name at any given moment where I stand." In what is found there, she goes on to clarify the stakes in this trying on 1,000 faces with a clarion call to recognize the seriousness of the academic enterprise. To read as if your life depended on it would mean to let into your reading your beliefs, the swirl of your dream life, the physical sensations of your ordinary carnal life, and simultaneously to allow what you're reading to pierce routines, safe and impermeable, in which ordinary carnal life is tracked, charted, channeled. To this, in what follows, I want to bring into play how essentially literary modes of thought, like metaphor, and especially like topographia, that is, the description of a place, aiming at vivid, lively characterization of that imaginary space, assure that there always is more going on than a simple identification with or transference of ourselves into the places we encounter in works of literature and into the characters whose thoughts we somehow manage to gain access to because of the author's craft. We, all of us, are, moreover, authors in and of ourselves whenever we're deeply embedded in the world of whatever we happen to be reading. Such is the transformational dynamism of literary topographia when ably handled. My goal then is to hold up a mirror today to this aspect of the human condition, shaping and animating our lives as readers. Let that become part of the definition of who you are, a reader, as if your life depended on it. So, to this end, I've divided my talk into 5 parts, and it's also on the handout, but I always like you to know where we're going, so you can check it off as we get there. My hope is that you'll find yourself amply equipped with conceptual tactics and a range of imaginative examples that will serve you well throughout your courses this course this semester as you seek to interrogate, critically assess, and make sense of the reading assignments, as well as the talks by other experts in their fields still to come. My title, therefore, is meant to be both descriptive of my intentions and also a provocation to think a bit more self-referentially about place and space. Some of you will know the works of William Faulkner, who gave to the world a new way of thinking about the South at a crucial moment in America's history. Cobbling together memories and stories about everyday life and unconscious urges and culturally driven habits of thought, he invented a place, Yoknapatawpha County in Mississippi. This was the space where he set in play enabling fictions that rocked the world, as recognized by his winning the 1949 Nobel Prize for Literature. At the awards ceremony, Gustav Hellstrom remarked, "As a probing psychologist, Faulkner is the unrivaled master among all living British and American novelists. Neither do any of his colleagues possess his fantastic imaginative powers and his ability to create characters. His subhuman and superhuman figures, tragic or common in a macabre way, emerge from his mind with a reality that few existing people, even those nearest to us, can give us." We'll be coming back to this question of fantastic, imaginative powers. We're going to see fantastic, imaginative powers are well within our grasp. Indeed, as regards Yoknapatawpha, don't look for it on any real map because it's an amalgam of literary imaginings, powerful ones, but still so seemingly real that you're sweating in the humid, heavy air of that locale, that melancholy landscape, as you walk alongside, catching snippets of thoughts, memories, dreams of, say, Lena Grove, wandering the dusty traces in Light in August, or Thomas Sutpen on his plantation in Absalom, Absalom, or Addie Bundren in As I Lay Dying. We overhear and participate in the half-formed internal echoes of, say, Joe Christmas and Light in August. And this should be on your handout, this quotation from Joe: "Memory believes before knowing remembers." Believes longer than recollects, longer than knowing even wonders. Knows, remembers, believes, a corridor in a big, long, garbled, cold, echoing building of dark red brick, soot bleakened by more chimneys than its own. God, I wish I would keep going on and reading it, and you can go read it too, the rest of the sentence. And we're following right along in that bleak orphanage, in those uniforms, in that space. About a decade ago, Rachel Ford commented, incidentally, in an undergraduate honors thesis, that Faulkner had used his fictional setting to challenge, in very real terms, quote, "the idealistic lost cause mentality of white supremacy," end quote, which he, quote, "grounded with a distinct sense of place, for the Southern landscape provides more than simply a backdrop to the stories," end quote. It plays an active role in plot and character development. By reading and coming to inhabit, which is to say, to dwell in and with, and reflectively to dwell on and become absorbed in the headspaces and probable places of the people represented in Faulkner's works, has led generations of readers to see and internally experience how the Southern landscape, broadly conceived, at once reflects and also tells a larger narrative about human identity, seen through the lens of the particular and moving on up to the universal. This is in part what I mean by imagining literature's transformative power. For first, we encounter how literary works present relevant issues concerning the limits and liberties of subjectivity, of history, and transformation. And then we can begin to reflect more purposefully on how we ourselves might choose to act in the world. Another powerfully affecting Southern writer, my friend and colleague at Sewanee, Kevin Wilson, uses his literary talents to create other worlds for readers to think about and spend some time inhabiting. He presents us with situations that challenge our normative perceptions of the way things present themselves to be known. He introduces us to characters who embody different habits of being by offering an edgy, if still safe space where readers can immerse themselves and seek meaning. We are goaded to try to understand and feel beyond the confines of our everyday experiences or life world. And at the bottom of page 1 of the handout, I'm using the term life world or Lebenswelt as a philosophical construct that basically means the lived experience as it comes to us to be known in the world. So if you want to read more about that after I leave, you're welcome, please, to do that. But I think Kevin Wilson does this particularly well, among others. In Wilson's case, this is not always easy on the reader because of the often difficult and always awkward situations depicted in his fictions, so reminiscent of the dark folk Gothic artistry of Shirley Jackson, whose works Kevin Wilson says he grew up on. Regarding Jackson, if you happen to know even her much anthologized The Lottery, the very mentioning of this title calls back to your memory, maybe not all the details of the story, but certainly how you felt as you read it for the first time, and what you remember taking away from it about fate and free will, and the shaky situational ethics of social norms. If you haven't read it, it'll take you 12 minutes, and I recommend you call it up and read it sometime. For few writers do this better, though, than that person who arguably was the first American writer to be celebrated by European intellectuals as contributing to world literature, and that's Edgar Allan Poe. Don't take my word for it, but sometimes ask Professor Phillips over there, and he's an internationally known expert on that very topic, and I think that's your new book jacket. Isn't that a great jacket with good colors? But most of you will have read The Raven, or at least heard of it. And so you'll know that when all is said and done, the poem, like Poe's celebrated Tales of Terror, is all about making you, the reader, experience something such that we are all affected in some way by those strong emotions. Or, as Poe put it in his critical writings, to experience the excitation and elevation of the soul. Poe, like many great writers, is concerned primarily with delving into, exploring, and discovering hidden depths of the self. All of the fiction writers so far mentioned, Faulkner, Wilson, Jackson, and Poe, promote a circumspect attitude toward claims of certain knowledge, so as to contest what we think we know to be the case about how the world works. They do this to help us, even if only momentarily, to entertain alternative and more pliant modalities of thought and cognition. This, in part, is what I mean by placing yourself in the space between your ears. And there are so many ways, and have been over the years, to imagine or conceptualize what variously, as we call headspace or consciousness, but even to bring up conscious thought already implies something about unconscious mental activity, as well as our countless involuntary thoughts over which we have little, if any, active control, like breathing, cell regeneration, and dreams. But how might all of this be expressed in a way that we can apprehend it so as to be able to do something with that takeaway? By way of example, the Renaissance English poet Edmund Spenser, in his The Faerie Queene, predicates his epic on just this problem: how to fashion yourself into a person of ethical action and gracious social interaction in the world. A world full of pitfalls and error and people who may not be seeking the same goals as you and who may indeed be trying to keep you from achieving your own potential. And so, in the second of his 6 books concerned with heroic questing, he has the young Arthur, before he became a legendary king, who unites the squabbling British barons with his round table, and another knight, Sir Gawain, or Gayon, the knight of temperance. They come upon the house of Alma, or the soul, and Fairy Queen, Book 2, Cantos 9 and 10. Here they can rest after wandering in search of their respective goals in fairyland, which is sort of like a medieval Yoknepatovna, but still and always moving through an interior landscape conducing to personal trial and self-revelation. At Alma's house brings together pre-modern faculty psychology, as it was called. We're going to learn a little bit more about that in a moment, and the mnemonic architecture of image and place, successfully integrating what was called artificial memory with natural memory. And you thought artificial intelligence was something new. To suggest a mentally disciplined equilibrium worthy of the temperate body. And let me get our next slide. In allegory, the mind makes a model of itself. You should write that down. In allegory, the mind makes a model of itself. What is allegory after all? And in the Fairy Queen, 2:9 through 10, it mirrors the mind's very structure, making it both a treatise on and an example of the central role that imagination plays in human life. It's honored with one of the 3 and most important places, the imagination. At the top of the house are 3 metaphorical chambers, or ventricles as they're called here, each with a figure representing a different faculty of the mind. The one of principal concern in our own quest today is inhabited by a character named Phantastes. Some of you remember from Hallström's Nobel address, he refers to the fantastic imagination. Well, Phantastes and phantasm all are part of the imaginative apparatus. In classical rhetoric, the word fantasia refers to the emotionally laden fictions that act powerfully in memory and on the mind. So, in Spenser, true to his name, Phantastes is described as having a sharp foresight and working wit that never idle was, ne once could rest a whit. And so he's constantly beset by idle thoughts and fantasies, devices, dreams, opinions unsound, shows, vision, soothsays, and prophecies, and all that feigned is. Spenser's personified imagination, therefore, could things to come foresee, and is represented as working in close association with his nearest neighbor, reason, who could of things present best advise, and good memory, who things past could keep in good record. Collectively, these 3 counsel Alma, or soul, how to govern well, and she, of course, is that well-managing soul that brings body and soul together. So far, so good. Now we can focus on how we, the readers, start our journey into Alma's house and our own way up that 3-chambered tower, keeping in mind that the whole literary construct is itself a traditional memory palace, a topic we're going to cover in more detail once we've left fairyland shortly. The entrance to this mnemonic place of Spenser's, or locus, as it was termed in pre-modern humanist thought, takes the form of a closed-off, well-regulated, and judiciously regulated mouth. And we're going to see more pictures of the mouth's relationship to the mind, such that you, the reader, are invited to pause and exercise your imagination, quite literally getting into it, getting into this episode as you enter the house through the mouth and thus into yourself, how you can gain access to that space between your ears. And if you look at the handout, the back page, so I'm not going to read all of it, it begins, therein 2 gates were placed seemly well, the one before by which all did pass. The gates, of course, are the lips and the teeth. The gates to enter into the head, and we're going to talk about how the head connects. I'll let you read that at your leisure, and if you're lucky enough, you may have a teacher who can be your guide to Book 2 of the Fairy Queen. For now, though, it's enough for us to take away today that the mnemonic architecture and the watchful porter of this entry gate set the scene for the first line of defense for maintaining one's integrity. The porter here, the guardian of the gate, the mouth entering into the brain, vigilantly keeps out gossips, babblers, and blazers of crime. And he wants this to be the first line of defense for your own integrity. So the porter is devoted to helping you keep temperate thoughts and deeds. That's your mouth. And well might this be something worth attending to then as now, for imagination often is characterized as running amok if it's not kept in check. You may have heard the expression, oh, you're just being carried away by that idea. I want to visualize that, to be carried away. Am I riding on the back of a wild boar? Is it a nice camel? What's carrying me away? How is that idea somehow pushing me somewhere? And where exactly is it that we're going when I'm carried away? So here we come to the impasse marking the limits of metaphor. In today's world, perhaps more urgently than was called for in pre-modern age, even with the advent of printing, how are we supposed to manage our minds, ourselves, our souls? What can literature help with this? By what means can we figure out how and what is in the space between our ears? What's in there? And where, by the way, is there? How do you imagine and how do you manage it? What kinds of things are you letting in to that space between your ears? To what extent is your attention distracted, contorted, and expanded by now AI and digital media and seemingly benign video games, not to mention explicitly violent ones like Grand Theft Auto and comparable first-person shooter games, all of which take up residence in the space imagined between your ears? How is it that you are imagining, indeed made to visualize, the inscape of what you are seeing from within? By what means can you take control of that space? In my time remaining, I want to talk about how people in the past, armed with the best that metaphor and topographia had to allow, did precisely this, namely, invent, discover, and develop tactics to wrangle and take control of what is going on in the space between one's ears. So we're going to follow up with another transition image and move on to another kind of mnemonic device. Although the image on the left purports to be an explanatory diagram of the way things are and provides a handy way to imagine the seat or place of the imagination itself, like the image on the right, it is just a visual mnemonic device to help you hold in your mind the matter you want to lodge there, the space between your ears. The image on the right is a crib sheet concerning the main branches of philosophy. And at the bottom of the handout, page 1, I've given you an etymology of philosophy as the love of wisdom. So it's no mean thing to try to keep philosophy straight in your heads and all of the mechanisms by which philosophy works. So here the image shows the main branches of philosophy, its twigs and leaves. This was a late medieval way of keeping in mind all the methods and all the branches of ways of thinking toward wisdom. Using an imaginative arboreal conceit or mnemonic device to work through all the places you want to commit to memory, concerning the discipline associated with the love of wisdom. This kind of mnemonic scheme is part and parcel of what we call the memory arts. And here's the definition I want us to have, because for the next 8 minutes, I'm going to talk about the art of memory and the arts of memory. What we think of as a memory art performs valuable social and collective labor by supplementing or externalizing a person's mental ability of storing information in an easily accessed way. This is extended mind theory, which we can talk about later, so that then one can, whether alone or within a group, recollect the information at later times for any of a number of practical uses and generative applications. The frontispiece to Maurice Dassinier's Art of Memory, for example, has a motto that heralds what the image visually sums up concerning what it takes to be a worthy speaker. And see if those images don't help with the story I'm about to tell. Sent by Zeus, the chief Olympian, Hermes, the winged messenger and god of oratory, delivers the memory arts, or in Latin, the ars memoriae, as he has it there. The book's being held out for us to read. The three graces, elegance, mirth, and good cheer, along with Minerva, goddess of wisdom. I think I drove by a Minerva road today coming here. Flanked Hercules of England, aptly named given the audience for this vernacular work. This was a book written in English. Owing to the visual shorthand of the day, the tableau's meaning would have been immediately clear to its original readers, who likewise accounted memory a key part of rhetoric. This pre-modern commonplace about eloquence is summed up well by Thomas Wilson. And he didn't know this text. He wrote before it. He said, Hercules had of all people linked together by the ears in a chain to draw and lead them even as he wanted. For his wit was so great, his tongue so eloquent, and his experience such that no one was able to withstand his reason. Along the same lines, it was generally understood that a well-stocked memory is a treasury from which one could draw to accomplish any of a number of aims limited only by the zodiac of your wit, which is to say your ingenuity, which is to say your imagination. From the very beginning, images and intense visualization techniques have been fundamental to the memory arts. The recovery and adaptation of classical precedents led Renaissance humanists, most notably Leon Battista Alberti, to embrace a view of painting explicitly as an art of memory. Some of you may have studied Alberti in art or art history class. But here we're drawing an Alberti who liked stories and the art of memory and saw painting in that light. In addition to revisiting Euclid's elements to explain representational perspective relative to the eye of the beholder, Alberti maintained that the starting point for any painting should be a story. And in this case, we have Christ giving the keys of the kingdom of heaven. That already tells us the title of the story. The most basic treatment of place system mnemonics, from Cicero to the present day, involves lively images, in Latin imagines agentes, arranged in places, loci. A backdrop is selected, whether a wall, a room, a theater, or a house, which we've already seen, a palace or city, a flower, a tree, we've already seen that, garden grove, a body, a hand or a finger, anything will do, onto which telling images are placed sequentially so you can retrieve them and use them later. Students of the art of memory tended to favor a simple house, like this typical domus locorum, or house of places, each numbered in Latin so you can find your way in primum, the first locus, the first one, you come in the entryway. And then you work your way around, you leave things there that you want to be able to recollect later. Then it was found that dividing just a stage into two halves was very easy, and you could stage whatever stories you wanted to remember. The decorum of which is indicated here in another image showing the optimal human accommodated dimensions of a room ready to use in an artificial memory scheme. It's a room in your mind, of course, between your ears, as you imagine yourself like an avatar strolling through and within this specially prepared space for mental activity, viewing and retrieving what you purposefully have left there. More elaborate designs lend themselves to accommodate more mnemotechnical places still. Here's our city of memory from Rumberg's Handbook on Artificial Schemes, showing a street with labeled destinations corresponding to the letters of the alphabet. So as we move from one page of the A part of town to the B part of town, we go from the abbatier, the abbot's house, and then we're in the B part of town. We have 5 places beginning with B. How are we going to remember them? Well, it'll be BA, BE, BI, BO, and BU, following the order of the alphabet after our letter B. And don't worry, there's a C page and a D page and so on, but he doesn't show them. This becomes his main example. So we go from the seat of ecclesiastical activity and whatever we put there to the barbitoncer or barber surgeon, to the bellator or armorer, to the bibliopola or bookseller, to the botica or oxmonger, and finally to the buplicus, the stock pens. Readers are then given a whole page of other options for filling in those things that you could develop on your own. Capitalizing on the benefits of this approach, my students have come up with some remarkably useful memory schemes, and so can you. This, we've already mentioned Fairy Queen Book 12, or Book 2, well, Canto 12 when I taught it a few years ago in an upper level graduate seminar. This is what one student drew. And all she had to do, she didn't even have it in her hand. She had it in her head because it was an easy to remember map. Could tell us everything that happened episode by episode by setting up in this kind of rebus roadmap. One other version, this is a mnemonic itinerary on a shield or background to guard against oblivion and to promote easy recall of the keywords covered in a single course by a college honors student. Some of you may have read Beowulf, moving to Chaucer and Sackville and Skelton and Spenser and Sidney, Shakespeare, Milton, Marlowe, Wyatt, and Surrey, who gave us iambic pentameter in English. And the student who did this included enough little marks, like under Sackville with the, on Skelton, we have the Wheel of Fortune and things that would help call to mind what he wanted to write about on his exam. The classical memory theater, though, is discussed by Robert Flood and labeled the theater of the world, represents the basic architectonic design of the memory arts generally conceived, modeled here on a playhouse, like Shakespeare's The Globe. He includes doors, windows, a parapet with a balcony, and geometrical figures down here. See the figures? Where you're going to place your speakers and their actors to take their places before your mind's eye, delivering what speeches you want to recall. Building on this basic plan, and you can see he's got the theater right there up by Aries. It's as if we're taking this image and we're now putting it on top of the zodiac, which are called what? Houses or mansions. And it's just another architectonic way of imagining what's going on within the places you want to build your own miniature memory theaters. So you could get even more sites or places, because you get 12 for each of the zodiac, but also you get a total of 12 times 7, or 84, and double that, or 168, if you follow the division of each house as indicated by the broken lines of the diagram. So you could fill in almost like a memory grid of all the stuff you want to include there. And it'll be handily accessed from your mental overview. The pattern of pre-modern microcosm likewise was used in Camillo Camillo's celebrated memory theater, bankrolled by King Francis I of France. This model simplified to accommodate just the main text I've used in a course to help students organize their thoughts about each work encountered so as to find thematic links between and among the works, thus forming a network of points for class discussion and ultimately providing viable theses for term papers. So moving from Homer's Iliad over to Cervantes, I mean, there are many ways you could arrange it, but this struck me as a symmetrical way to organize the course with the threefold divine comedy of Dante prismatically in the center. Once you have that in mind, I mean, think of how many courses you've left and you can't name the book you read second in a class. So, a way of organizing the material is also a way of bringing it back to mind. Now, the human body was also a time-honored backdrop mentioned among other similar schemes in Gesualdo's Pluto Sophia, which was a prominent Italian anthology of hidden wisdom. The designation of places on the body to mark sets of sequentially retrieved images for constructing one's own personal artificial memory is similar in kind, if different in degree, from using letters to label corresponding body parts, like here in an anatomical treatise, where you're using the same mnemonic system, but your letters are corresponding to observable phenomena on the human frame. And even old world meets new world colliding in the humoral sciences, which accommodated itself to the new techniques of experimental anatomy while still practicing phlebotomy or bloodletting. That's why you needed to know what the 7 planets were doing, because you need to know what time of the week and day to bleed someone from what part of the body. You laugh, but it went on to the mid-19th century and still goes on in some cultures. Slide 33. The same lettering overlay can be applied to the hand, whether to use 5 places on the hand or 15 when using the 3 knuckle breaks per finger, as well as to generate scores of places using a circular combinatory method. And this is where it starts getting crazy, mystical, and hermetic. But it's just a simple memory device of wheels within wheels. These also were used as part of ciphering and coding to hide information from others that could be read. Such hermetic systems follow Raymond Lull, who was a medieval logician and chivalric knight primarily, and it's kept alive by people like Jean Bellot, who we saw in the Renaissance. But these are interesting to me because these wheels within wheels, known as an ars notaria, was a prefiguration of later memory machines like Leibniz's metal punch plates. That was our first computer and library storage. And Babbage's difference engine, the first programmable mechanical computer, all functioned off a similar method. The practitioner of Lull's system gazed upon and engaged with figures with encrypted diagrams, or notae, a different nota provided for each body of thought. So adapting this for contemporary classroom, I call them magic circles. My students get a heuristic device for noticing, recording, and visualizing key course information, and in the process testing out a range of connections they otherwise may not have seen, working in groups in class, but first having tackled it at home. This is one having to do with poets, different poets, and we started by charting what are just some biological, biographical, phenomenological connections. Then we can get deeper as they start reading the poems. Here was another magic circle on an honors class where we read things like Nietzsche's Zarathustra, The Myth of Eternal Return, Goethe's Werther, and tried to see all the way, like with Hesse's Siddhartha, linking reincarnation to Plato's Republic. That can lead to all kinds of interesting trains of thought you may not have thought to ask. And from the sublime to the mundane, animals likewise served as mnemotechnical backgrounds, even a whole menagerie, using real as well as mythological creatures, placed in alphabetical order, just anything you could remember, and in this case more particularly, to teach orthography in basic Latin. And I'll just read 1 or 2 of these because I really like the mus minirit for the little mouse chirpeth. Supposed to remind you of I. And as for the carter crieth, oh, 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 and the cornix cornicatur, the crow caweth, ah, ah, ah. This was the first known illustrated book for educating children, and it set off a whole rage. Some of you may know this book by Comenius called The Visible Picture, World in Pictures. He also uses it as a way to create a scenario to learn all the parts of grammar and speech and how to make poetry and prose poems. Sort of a metacognitive approach to your learning. Such techniques for visualizing one's learning presuppose a place one can inhabit, as well as providing a space for thinking, with the idea of future action in the world, which I would suggest actualizes and makes real an approach to reading as if your life depended on it. Accordingly, let me close now with a practical exercise. Are we okay to do an exercise? Do I have 3 minutes, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. That's how much I allowed for it. First, turn to somebody near you. So if it's you turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. Do you mind turning around? Will you, Cheryl, you do that? Get 2 or 3 people that you can talk with. And this is where you talk out loud. Turn to 1 or 2 or 3 people. Who are you going to turn to? Who y'all going to turn to? First of all, meet them. Say your name if you don't know them. Meet these people. Hello, my name is... Who are you going to turn to? Are you there? All right, good. Make sure they know your name and you know their names. Everybody know their names? Who are you talking to? Glasses, smiling. Beard. All right, good. Who are you talking to? All right, good. Now, identify something that singularly caught your attention, piqued your interest, provoked your curiosity, made you scratch your head about my remarks or slide. That's the first thing. Come up with just one thing that snagged your attention for whatever reason. Maybe it was the chicken I had running across. I don't know. You see the chicken? I didn't. I'm just kidding. First, come up with something. Then, second, try to imagine with that partner and devise a visual mnemonic to place it in your own memory palace with a room big enough to enable elaboration in the future. Let's start there. Identify something that you thought was interesting, caught your attention, piqued your interest. Tell the other players. Each player talk. God, you took notes, really?
I did.
Are you a Spencerian?
Huh?
Do you like Spencer? All right. What did you come up with? What's your one thing? What's your one thing?
I don't know, like the anatomical spacing.
Yes.
Because I'm into like medicine and stuff.
We could go back. That was the first English compendium of all the stuff the Europeans had been doing.
Okay.
It's called the Microcosmographia.
Okay.
I'll let you have the slides. So that caught your attention. What about you? Tell her. All right. What y'all got? Y'all got at least one thing? What?
We found like the way the mind is like kind of structured with like the different ventricles.
Yes. Is it? It actually is, by the way. If you look at the modern maps of the brain. What about you? What you like? Same thing? Now you'll figure out a way to put it in the memory theater. You got it? What's your memory theater? Walk me there.
Oh, sorry. We just had the thing.
You got your thing. Put it somewhere. Y'all got a thing?
We have a couple.
Good. Put them somewhere. Then I'm going to call on you to tell me where it is. You'll do that? You'll play our game? What's in yours? Yeah, what's in your memory palace? A couch? Are you sleeping? You got one? You got one? Oh, that's a good answer though. But if you're homeless, you're sleeping under the bridges or by a can, and that gives you a space. All right. All right, let's come up with some cross applications. If your last name begins with an M, raise your hand. M as in mariachi. Nobody's last name begins with M? What are the odds? All right, well, you want to play? All right, what did you come up with?
I found the cipher really interesting. The ciphers within the ciphers, I thought it looked very cool.
Yes, and they're very useful too, because once you visualize them and you turn them, and you can start keeping them in your own head, and you can make them stand for different things. One of the things, see if we can get back to this one that Raymond Lull did, these are actually attributes of God. glory, gift giving. And as you turn your wheel within a wheel, you get new insights into how you can reach for the highest good. Somebody whose last name begins with Y. Whose last name begins with Y? Wow. Okay. What about A? My last name begin with A. All right. All right. What about you in the end with the pink bottle? What y'all come up with?
So I really like the anatomical, like the human body that was laid out. I find that interesting.
This human body or this human body?
The first one.
This human body. Yeah, from the Pluto Sophia. I thought you'd like the mystical one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And where are you going to put that? Did you come up with something? Did y'all help each other? Where are you going to put it in your memory palace? We're going to go in a room, and is there going to be maybe a book on a table? And you'll turn the page, and this will be the thing you see?
I think mine's going to be in a pink water bottle.
You'll be pink. That's as good a way to remember it as ever. Good. Somebody with a yellow shirt on. Yellow shirt. All the way to the back corner. What'd you come up with?
We talked about the Spencer's Fairy Queen and the three, like the judgment, memory, and imagination. Yes. And I would say it would probably be like, the way I thought of it was like the three main parts of the brain, so it would probably be in like a textbook somewhere.
Yes. Yes, just like that. And as I was discussing with this group, if you look at contemporary books on mapping of the mind or the brain, it works. It's kind of what's in the hippocampus is the memory. Yeah. Are you in med neuroscience?
No, I'm audio production.
Either one is great. Good. Green shirt. What'd you and your partner come up with? And what's your name?
Philip.
Hi, Philip. How are you? Good. What'd y'all come up with?
So we were we were both really like interested in the mnemonic quality of, kind of near the end you talked about like the different like animals and like the noises and how like those kind of associated with like memory.
Yes.
And so we kind of drew a parallel of that, like, you know, if you think about how kids learn about how to read, spell, pronounce certain syllables or vowels, we almost drew a parallel of that because, you know, kids can like associate, say, you know, certain sounds with nature. They're like, oh, I've heard this, you know, just outside in nature from these animals or these natural causes. It might have this like kind of positive reinforcement where, oh, okay, I can just associate this when I'm learning this in a classroom to stuff that's happening.
And isn't it great? All the way in the 16th century, they're using it. But he had to leave. He was run out of town. He was in the Czech Republic, and he ends up going to England, where people are like, okay, we like you. Religion had something to do with it too, but that's another story. But yes, and so where are you all going to put that in your memory palace?
Honestly, I'm probably gonna most associate it in like the area I use for like verbal pronunciation, like critical thinking towards like speech. Yes. If that makes sense.
That's exactly how Comenius is doing it. Good. And the person, did you have anything else in the green shirt?
Oh no, I was just going to agree. I would just honestly probably remember it the same way that he puts in the book.
Yes, it's so natural. In fact, he calls it the natural world, the visible world. And moving down one person, I think you said if you had to have a memory palace, you'd be homeless. But now you've thought better of that. And even when you're in nature, you can find your places in your groves and mark out your space. Good. And with the black thing to drink from. Yes, what'd you come up with?
The painting of cartoon pieces.
Yes, isn't that an interesting takeaway to have had? What'd you like about that? It just struck your interest?
I learned it from my art class a couple years ago.
Good.
And I remember building in perspective tools. So I probably put it in my house because we live in a very straight house.
And I mean, that's almost a little memory picture right there. You could place things. What about your partner? Did you come up with anything?
I really like the shield and just the idea of memory palace in general.
Limited only by the zodiac of your wit, by your imagination, by your ingenuity. You could do this too. So, looking at the clock, even though it's an hour wrong and 4 minutes fast, well done, one and all. Thank you for letting me address you today. And I'm happy to make available to Dean Phillips for posting the slides if you'll need them. If we have time for Q&A, I'm happy to do that. And thank you, one and all. If you have to go, off you go into the world to do good deeds, think deep thoughts. Thank you.